I offer my most loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. And I pray to Swami that he gives us all the understanding that it is Swami who speaks and it is Swami who listens through all of us. Elders, sisters and brothers, Sairam to all of you and a very warm good evening. It was mentioned that the talk is going to be light. I didn't know. So I hope you're prepared. I'm very grateful to the organizers for having given me this wonderful topic. At the very outset, let me make it very clear that I don't sit here as a person who's qualified enough to talk about how Swami's command has to be followed. I sit here as a person who requires this reminder of how important it is to follow Swami's command. So for that, I'm very grateful for this opportunity, because even as I speak to all of you, it's a very strong, firm, and constant reminder to me how every word of Swami has to be treated as precious. One of our lecturers, who happened to come to Swami in the early 70s, like all of us, had the habit of writing many letters to Swami. Not that he had a lot of things to ask, but just to express his love and devotion, he would constantly write letters to Swami. So one day, Swami walks up to him and asks him, "In some letters you write to me saying, 'Swami, you're my God.' In some letters you say, 'Swami, you're my best friend.' In some letters you say, 'Swami, you're my mother.'" Swami asked, "Why do you keep changing your role, my role in your life? Why do you keep changing my relationship between you and me?" His teacher was a little surprised. He said, "Because Swami, aren't you everything for us? Don't we say, 'Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva'? You're my mother, you're my father, you're my friend, you're my relative, you're everything to me." But here was Swami telling, why don't you fix this relationship between you and me? Because a very beautiful Telugu verse which Swami would quote, a Telugu line written by a great poet, "Enta matramu evaru talachina anta matrame nenu," which means God is everything. God cannot be comprehended. You and me trying to understand Swami is like standing in front of the ocean with a thimble in hand and saying, "I'm going to measure the waters." There is no way I or you or any of us here can comprehend him. But the way we look at him is what he is to us. So then this lecturer said, "Swami, then can I relate to Swami as a mother? Because that's the most dearest to me." And Swami said, keep that relationship, but keep it fixed. Because in this process of fixing a relationship with Swami and endeavoring in the same path, there is a lot of benefit to be accrued. I'm going to present before you another example of how we can relate to Swami and how the way Swami operates in our life changes with how we relate to Swami. Now imagine I'm a student. I've gone through a year of academic rigor, learning, practicals, and all those kind of internals and externals. At the end of the year, I'm giving my annual exam. So there's a question paper in front of me. I write the answers, and I send it to an examiner. And typically, the examiner doesn't know whose paper he's correcting, right? That's how at least in India, it's very, very important. That's one of the ways they keep the process corruption-free. So the examiner has no clue who you are, where you come from, what is your background. All that he knows is the answers that are in front of him in that paper. If you have a right answer, you get the marks. If you have a wrong answer, you lose the marks. If we were to come in front of Swami and give Swami the role of an examiner in our life, which means I carry on with my life the way I think it has to be lived. I have my own idea of right and wrong, good and bad, right choices, wrong choices. So I lead my life the way I think it has to be led. And then I come in front of Swami and say, Swami, reward me or punish me as you see fit. Then I give Swami the role of an examiner, and the role of an examiner is very limited. When we give this role to Swami, we are limiting his grace. It is not that Swami doesn't know us, but this is the role we have called him to play, and that is the role he will play. Once one of my lecturers, when he was a student, he was sitting in the mandir. Swami comes up to him and all of a sudden pulls him up and says, what is the distance between you and me? Right? He was just about 5 or 6 feet away from Swami, and Swami suddenly looked at him and said, what is the distance between you and me? He didn't know whether he has to answer in meters or feet or inches or what is the metric to use. But Swami, of course, does not ask anything which is trivial. It's always profound. And Swami looked at him and said, the distance between you and me is the distance between me and you. The distance between you and me is the distance between me and you. Meaning, if you think God is far, He is far. If you think God is dear, He is dear. The distance you place between you and God is the distance there is between God and you. So if I want to give a different role to Swami, I don't want to relegate Swami to the role of an examiner. Imagine I go to Swami and say, Swami, you become my teacher. You teach me the lesson. At the end of it, you examine me. And once you examine me, you give me the marks. You give me the reward, you give me the punishment. Now, when we do that, we are giving a larger role to Swami in our life. And if I were to get ahead of myself a little bit, imagine when your teacher becomes an examiner. The moment she looks at your paper, he looks at your paper, he knows the student. There are some times in the heat of the moment, in the tension, we might write a wrong answer. But the teacher will look at the answer and say, no, but in the class when I asked him the question, he answered right, which means he knows the answer. He must have just missed it here. It's all right, let me give him the mark. You give a larger scope for Swami's grace in your life when you give him this role of a teacher, of an examiner, and the one who rewards you in the end, isn't it? But to be able to do that, two things are important. One, as I said, we must want Swami to play that role. He will not force himself upon us. Once when Swami was talking to the students, Swami said this very thing. Swami said, God never forces surrender. The surrender must come from you. At the moment of creation, at the moment of separation, or however you'd like to see that, Swami says, I have given you free will. Now you must choose to offer that free will to me. You must choose to come and surrender that free will to me. I will not do that. So the first thing is we should want Swami to play that role in our life. The second point is, how do we get him to play that role? As I said, if I'm going to relegate Swami to the role of an examiner, I tell him, I know how to lead my life. I know what is right, I know what is wrong, I know how to live, I know what to eat, I know how to live my life. But when I say, Swami, you become my teacher, which means I tell myself, I will define my life with your words. Your teachings will decide how I live. Your teachings will decide what I do with this life, isn't it? So the first step is really to want Swami to play that larger role in our life. And the second step is to start defining our life with his message. For a brief period when we were all students, we had this opportunity to wait for Swami to give us a command as to what we have to do after our studies, right? In the local parlance of Prashantinilayam, we call it the waiting period. And we would call ourselves the waiting boys. We finish our studies and we are waiting for Swami to tell us what to do next. Many times, I would get this thought. I would think that here I am, sitting in Mandir, waiting for Swami to give me a command as to what to do. Now imagine Swami walks up to me and Swami says, don't sit here. Sit in that corner. That's easy to follow. Or if Swami walks up to me and says, don't sit during darshan, I want you to stand. That's again easy. Now imagine if Swami were to come to me and say, from tomorrow, you should not have more than 20 thoughts. Will I be able to follow that command? Or if Swami comes and says, from tomorrow I don't want you to get angry at all. Will I be able to follow that command? I love Swami dearly, I have a lot of reverence for him, I am surrendered to him, etc., etc. But is that a command I can follow? The meaning is, if Swami's command is related to this body, it's easier to follow because I have better control over this body. But if Swami's command is to the mind, I find it more difficult because I don't have control over the mind. Isn't it? So which means, as I am sitting there and saying, Swami, give me a command, I want to follow it, it goes without saying that I must start preparing myself to receive that command. Otherwise, when it comes, it will go waste. When Swami comes and tells me what to do, I probably would not be in control of myself to be able to do what he asks me to do. Isn't it? So first, as I said, we must start changing our life to suit him, to suit his words, the way I talk, the way I dress, the way I interact with others, the choices that I make. There is a very beautiful Chinnakatha which Swami says, and I'm sure many of you may be aware of it. There is this great king in the Indian tradition, in the Indian mythology, called King Janaka. He's supposed to be a great king who became a great jnani, right? He's a person who became self-realized. But before he became self-realized, when he was still a king, he one day makes an announcement. Is there a master in this land who can come and teach me self-realization in the time it takes for me to mount my horse? You know, when you climb your horse, the time it takes to put your leg over the saddle, we do it in a swift motion, isn't it? So the king says, is there any master in this land who can come and give me self-realization in the time it takes for me to put my leg over the saddle? And all the scholars who till then were professing their wisdom went into hiding. Because nobody could do that, right? Who can claim that I will give you self-knowledge or Atmajnan in a matter of few seconds? So Swami says to the kingdom, just then, one of the greatest sages of Indian mythology come, sage Ashtavakra. He comes and he sees all these scholars in one corner in the kingdom having a discussion. He walks up to them, he asks what happened, what are you all troubled about? They tell him about the announcement of the king. The sage Ashtavakra says, oh, I can give Atmajnan like that. So they take him to the king and he goes in front of King Janaka and says, you want Atmajnan in a jiffy? I'm here. I'll give it to you. So Janaka is very happy. He goes to him and says, tell me, what should I do? So he says, see, if I have to do that for you, you first have to become my disciple. The king says, I am your disciple. Tell me what to do. And then Ashtavakra says, this palace is not a suitable place for spiritual knowledge. We need to go into a more quiet and more calm and a more serene place. The king says, all right, let's go to the forest. So the king, sage Ashtavakra, and few of the army men, they venture into the forest. The horse is kept ready because that's the challenge, right? The time it takes to mount the horse. So the horse is kept ready. Ashtavakra turns to Janaka and says, okay, now you are my disciple, I am your guru. You have to give me a dakshina. You have to give me an offering the disciple is expected to give the guru. And King Janaka says, you ask me for anything. You ask me for the whole kingdom, I'll give it to you. Ashtavakra says, what do I do with the kingdom? He looks at this disciple Janaka, who's a true aspirant, and says, give me your mind. Right? He says, give me your mind. Janaka says, you have it. I've given my mind to you. And then the sage says, you sit down here, I'll come back and I'll give you Atmajnana. So Janaka sits down, closes his eyes, and he's sitting silently. And Ashtavakra goes into the forest. They wait for a couple of hours. The king doesn't seem to be getting up from his deep meditation. Now the soldiers get a bit worried. Has anything happened to the king? So they rush back to the kingdom and they call the ministers. The ministers come and try to wake up the king. He doesn't wake up. They all get scared. What has happened? Has the sage done something to our king? Then the ministers get a wise idea. Let's go call the queen. Is there a husband who doesn't listen to the wife? There is a beautiful Chinnakatha, a little aside, a Chinnakatha which Swami says, there was another king who made an announcement that I'm going to put 2 stalls, two sheds. All those husbands who listen to their wives should come in one side, and all those husbands who don't listen to their wives should come on the other side. So he found that the whole kingdom has come and everybody has filled the shed on the right side. And there was one man who was the sole hero standing under the shed which was erected for people who don't listen to their wives. And the king is so thrilled, at least there's one person in my kingdom. He goes up to that man and says, man, I'm really proud of you. But tell me honestly, do you have the courage not to listen to your wife? And the man says, Majesty, not at all. When I was leaving my house, my wife told me, you must go to the shed where there are no people. So here I am. This is the story which Sami used to say. So the minister said, is there anybody who does not listen to the wife? So I'll call the queen. Let the queen try to wake up the king. So the queen comes and she starts calling out to Janaka, and Janaka doesn't open his eyes. Now they get really panicky. They send a battalion into the forest in search of Ashtavakra. And they see Ashtavakra happily sitting under a tree. So they catch him and they drag him and bring him in front of the king. And they ask him, what have you done? Why is the king not responding? And very gently, Ashtavakra looks at Janaka and says, O king, open your eyes. And Janaka opens his eyes. And then the sage tells Janaka, tell them why you didn't open your eyes when they called you. And Janaka says, O master, I gave you my mind. Is there anything that I can do without my mind? Can I respond to questions? Can I open my eyes? Can I give an answer without my mind? When I've surrendered my mind to you, unless you permit me, unless you command me, I can't do anything. If we have that kind of control over the mind, I think we all can go home, right? We don't need any advice from anybody. We don't need to read anything. We don't need to listen to anything. But the fact is, we don't have that kind of control. So where do we start? Once Swami had called a few students for an interview. And we all know youngsters are always very restless and fidgety. There was this one particular boy who was extremely fidgety. He couldn't sit quietly for some time. He was all the time, shaking and moving and adjusting himself. Swami looked at him and Swami said, calm down, sit still. And he said, okay, Swami, yes, Swami. He sat like that for a minute, and then after that again he started moving and he started shaking his legs, his limbs. Swami looked at him and Swami was waiting for a time to strike when the iron is hot. And that boy gave just the opportunity to Swami. When Swami said, "Do you have any questions? Would you like to ask any questions?" This fidgety little boy looks up to Swami and says, "Swami, how to control the mind?" Swami was like, "I was waiting for that." And Swami gave a beautiful analogy. Beautiful analogy. Swami said, imagine you have a pot of water. You take that pot of water and you keep it on a table. Pretty much something like this. You have a stool or a table. You take a pot of water and you keep it on the table. Swami said, if you keep shaking the table, won't the water in the pot also shake? Swami said, if your body is so fidgety, how can your mind be calm? Swami said, start with the body. Start by disciplining the body. And that's why, especially when it comes to bhajan singing, Swami is so particular about the posture in which you sit, the way you sit still. I had a classmate of mine, a very interesting young fellow. He joined Swami's school in his 11th standard. He had this very weird way of getting involved in bhajans. When he used to sit for bhajans in the bhajan hall or in the Kulwant hall, there used to be a circumference of 2 feet around him where people could not sit. Because when he used to sing bhajans, he used to clap. Literally, not kidding. And he used to sway from this end to that end, and he used to have a horribly contorted face. And he was actually lost in raptures. He was singing, completely lost in the bliss of singing bhajans. Young boy, so devoted to Swami. The bhajan hall used to be so packed, but in spite of that, they had to leave that space for him because this boy was so extravagant in his expression of devotion. So Swami looked at this boy, and one day Swami called him. And Swami said to the other boys who were there, he said, look at this boy, how lost he is in bhajans. See, this is true bhavam, Swami said. He loses his body consciousness when he sings. And Swami was praising him, and in the bhajan hall, Swami praised him. The next day, Swami called him inside for an interview. Swami gave him a beautiful ring. And for 2-3 days, Swami kept praising, see this boy, this is how you should do bhajans. You should be lost in bhajans. 2-3 days went by. Swami said, calm down. Don't do so much. Be still. Swami said, this is not right. This is not necessary. And you wouldn't believe it, for the next 2 or 3 years, whenever Swami would see him, Swami would tell him, cut the movement, calm down. I still recall when we were in Vrindavan, this boy goes up to the stage to give arti to Swami. All of us are sitting there, Swami is there and this boy is there. Swami lights the arti and Swami says, reduce. I still watch you and I can see that you're still moving around too much. Because the process of controlling the mind starts with controlling the body. The discipline of the body is very, very important. And that is why when we say, Swami, I want your words to define my life. I want to lead my life in a manner that it represents your message. We straight away start by, I have this addiction, how can I get rid of this? I have a bad temper, how can I get rid of this? These are all qualities where we have very less control over ourselves, isn't it? Instead of starting in that extreme, start with simple things. Simple traits, the way we dress, the way we eat, what we eat. Especially as youngsters, we would often ask this question. When you first read Advaita, it completely messes with your mind. Because you've been told you're not the body. And the moment you're told you're not the body, what does it matter what I wear? What does it matter if I groom myself or not? Right? That's a question which often comes. Because the moment we say that I'm not this body, we think the physical is not important. But Swami says, no, it's not like that. You have far more control over your physical. So start with that and start with those things which calls for a little bit of control over the body and a little bit of control over the mind. When you start making choices, when you give importance to Swami's word. Wearing whites does not make me more spiritual. Having a short hair, having a clean-shaven face does not make me spiritual. Speaking in a certain manner, being a vegetarian, being a vegan does not make me spiritual. But if I do each one of these things with the idea, as Swami would say, Sarva Karma Bhagavat Pritiyartham. If I do each one of these actions, if I make each one of these choices in my life thinking, this is to please Swami. I feel this is what Swami likes, and so I am doing this in my life. That becomes spiritual. Right? The way you dress does not make you spiritual. All of these are physical traits, very true. These are all physical things which have nothing to do with the spiritual. But when you make a choice, when you take control over your life, over your mind, over your body, and say, I do this because I feel this pleases Swami, that act becomes spiritual. Then you're telling Swami, Swami, you have become my teacher now. And there's another very, very important point when we do these small acts. A very, very important point. If you read a little bit about artificial intelligence, I'm sure there'll be people here who are more well-versed in that topic than me. It's very similar to the way the mind works. The mind is something like a self-learning algorithm. If you give it an input and say that this is a critical decision I'm making, you remember this, the mind will remember it and make it a part of its thinking process. When we make these small changes in our life and we tell ourselves, we don't have to tell anybody else, we are telling ourselves and we are telling our mind that this is what Swami expects of me and this is what I am going to do. We are actually giving that message to the mind. And the mind will remember that. And the next time when a similar choice comes, the mind will tend towards making that choice. Pretty much like how self-learning algorithms work. But what we do is, we give the mind a very confused input. Some things we say are very, very important. There are some things which Swami says, we say that no, this is not so important. Those things that we are not able to understand, we push it aside and say, no, these are not important. But these things, even when we don't understand, I'll come back to that again, even when we don't understand, if we pursue it and we start doing it and we keep doing it, these are messages that you give to your mind saying that this is important, you remember this. And when we start doing this, what happens when we give this role of a teacher to Swami? We were talking about going to Uravakonda, right? And Swami was staying with his brother Seshamaraju. He declared, he came back. There was one person who was very disappointed with Swami's declaration. And that was Seshamaraju Garu, Swami's elder brother, because he thought he would have made a fine clerk. He became Sai Baba. He would have been a fine clerk in the government office. So one day he writes a letter to Swami saying that, what are you doing? You're going to get yourself into deep trouble. And Swami writes a letter back to him. It's a very, very epochal letter. It's a very beautiful letter and we hold it very dearly. There is another beautiful incident about the letter related to Radio Sai. I'll probably hold back because it's coming in the next Sathya to Sai. So I'm not going to speak about that. So in that letter, Swami makes a very, very important point. Swami says, in Telugu, he says, Cheipatti kapadute vratamunaku. He says, I have come to guide, I have come to teach you, but in what manner? Cheipatti kapadute vratamunaku, to hold your hand and walk you to the path, to the goal. Not simply to show you, like how anybody asks us, where is the Western canteen? We'll say, go straight, take left, and ask somebody there. No, Swami has not come to guide us like that. Swami says, Cheipatti kapadute vratamunaku, I have come with a vow that I will hold your hand and I will walk you every step. Which means the path is going to be customized for you. About 10 years ago, I met one very interesting gentleman. This person was part of the group from Bombay which used to come walking all the way from Bombay. Right? For a few years, Swami permitted them to do that sadhana. They would come all the way from Bombay walking. It would take them 18 days to 3 weeks or something like that. And they used to follow a rigorous discipline. They would not eat anywhere outside. They would cook their own food. They would be doing namasmarana and coming all the way. And whenever they would come, Swami would always call them for an interview. One interview guaranteed. Right? And it was a very simple group. This group consisted of people like, some of them were masons, construction workers, small vendors. But every time they would come, Swami would call them for an interview. So in one of the interviews, Swami calls them and tells, see, when you come here as part of this Varkari, that's the word we use, right? Varkari tradition, where you walk and come for a pilgrimage. When you come for this Varkari pilgrimage, Swami said, I don't want you to do any seva. Right? Swami's words. Swami said, I don't want you to do any seva. When you come here, don't go here and there. Don't go to the canteen and try to do some seva there. Don't go and clean some bathrooms. No, none of that. Don't do any of that. Come here, sit in the hall, do namasmarana, participate in the bhajans, have Swami's darshan, go eat and go and sleep. Swami said, don't do anything else. Just do this much. So they would strictly follow it, and most of them had got their japamalas blessed by Swami. So they would, whenever they would come rigorously and religiously, they would follow that. They won't do any seva. They'll just sit in the mandir as long as they're permitted. They'll do namasmarana. They'll be rotating their beads. And they would go back and sleep once the day is done. So this is going on. And one year, when they were all here, Swami gives a discourse. And in the discourse, Swami says, there are a lot of young people who come to the ashram to have Swami's darshan, and they are so lazy that they don't even go to the canteen and serve water. Can't you at least do that much? That much seva can't you do? And they will be sitting there and rotating their rosary beads in the name of devotion. And the moment Swami said that, the devotees in the crowd are giving them stares and glares, because everybody knew that this is the group of youngsters who sit there rotating their rosary beads and don't do anything. And Swami went at length, and the paropakarartham idam shariram, this body has been given to serve others, and you're lazy. Say to all the time think about your prayer and self-realization is selfish. We know all of what that Swami says. So these people silently put their japmalas inside. And the next morning they come for darshan, they pull out their japmala and everybody is staring at them. Oh, these are the culprits. These are those lazy boys. So they didn't know what to do. Here Swami had told them not to do any seva, and Swami is speaking, saying such things in the discourse. So for 2 or 3 days they were a bit confused. And then Swami calls them for an interview, that one interview which is promised every trip. The moment they go inside, they put forth their confusion in front of Swami. Say, Swami, what are we supposed to do? You told us not to do seva, and this is what you're saying. And Swami very clearly said, that is for the public, this is for you. Swami said, this instruction which I gave you is for you. What I gave in the discourse was in general. Imagine Swami starts an organization and calls it Sri Sathya Sai Seva Organization. Swami has propagated service, selfless service, as the best means of self-realization. But still, if that is not the path for you, it's not the path for you. And Swami says, I am here to walk you on the path which is right for you. Chaipatti kapadute vratamunaku. Not to simply give you directions, but to hold your hand and customize the path for you. We all have heard that famous shloka in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Sambhavami yuge yuge. Right? When there is a fall in dharma, when the pious are suffering, Swami says, Krishna says, Sambhavami yuge yuge. Every age I manifest myself to protect those who suffer. Right? The good ones, the pious ones who suffer. Once while speaking about that shloka, Swami says, Not sambhavami yuge yuge, sambhavami pade pade, Swami said. Yuge yuge is once in a yuga, once in an eon. Swami said, I am giving you a word, not sambhavami yuge yuge, sambhavami pade pade. Every step I will manifest to guide you. What a reassurance that is. He says, every step I will walk, I will hold your hand. But for that, we must ask Swami to play that role in our life, isn't it? We must say that, I don't want you to be only an examiner, I want you to be my teacher. I want you to tell me what is right and wrong. I want you to tell me how this life has to be led. When you say that Swami plays this role, the next role that you want him to play is that of an invigilator, right? The next role, as we always have it, the teacher has finished his lessons, you've been taught what you have to be taught, then he sets a paper. He creates a test for you. And Swami says, see, since I am the teacher, I know your capacity. And the test I give you will always be within your capacity. Oftentimes we think that, Swami, I can't bear this. Swami says, no, I will never give you something that you cannot bear, because I know your capacity, because I am your teacher. So when Swami puts us through a test, he pretty much knows what he is putting us through. But the basis of that, again, is obedience. One of our lecturers from the Anantapur campus, one of our seniors, she narrates this beautiful episode where one day she is in the interview room and Swami looks at her and asks, what do you want? Right? That's the million-dollar question when Swami asks you, what do you want? And she's thrilled and she looks at Swami and says, Swami, please give me devotion. Swami, please give me devotion. Swami says, no, that is not the right prayer. And she's surprised. I mean, that's the highest thing that you can ask for. I would think that's the highest thing to ask for. Swami said, no. Why are you asking for devotion? Swami said. And she said, because Swami, in life we constantly have to make choices. And we have to constantly make choices that will please Swami. And for that I need more and more devotion. So I want devotion. And Swami said, no, wrong prayer. See, you have devotion, that's why you have made this choice. Which means that's why you have given Swami this role in your life. Because of devotion, you have made this choice. Then she said, Swami, then what should I pray for? What should I ask for? Swami said, ask for obedience. Ask for obedience, Swami said. There is this senior of mine, I think, who still is working in the ashram. He studied in Swami's school. He completed his 12th standard. And as all of us do, he went up to Swami and said, Swami, what should I do? Which course should I take? And Swami looks at him and says, I think you've studied enough. Stop studying with this. And he said, Swami, just 12th standard. I need to do some degree or some graduation, post-graduation. Swami said, no, this is enough. Schooling is enough for you. Now, all kinds of things are running in this boy's mind. People will not respect me in this world. If I don't have a degree, they'll think I'm a school dropout, right? That's the fear we get. So he said, Swami, let me do some course, at least a BA, BSc, something I'll do. And Swami said, hey, what do you want to do after you finish your education? He said, Swami, I want to serve you in whatever capacity you choose for me. To serve me, this is enough. Stop with schooling. So this boy said, Swami, I want to serve you and I definitely will serve you, but let me do something, just for the sake of the respect that I'll get from this world. Then Swami looks at him very firmly and says, do you trust me or not? He says, do you trust me? And he says, yes, Swami, I trust you. Then I am telling you, this is enough. Will you listen to me? Imagine this boy's, should you say intelligence, should you say audacity? He looks at Swami and says, Swami, I will follow, but you should give me a boon. He says, I will follow, but you should give me a boon. Imagine, here is Swami giving us an instruction which is best for us, and to follow that, we want a reward. We want an incentive. Swami said, Boon, what do you want? What a beautiful prayer he made that day. He said, Swami, the next time, don't give me a choice. The next time when you choose what is right for me, make me follow it. Don't give me a choice. Right? So the best thing to pray for is, yes, we have devotion. If not for devotion, we wouldn't be sitting here. If not for devotion, we will not be thinking of Him. But having got that devotion, Sami says, now pray for obedience. And there are many, many ways by which we can start this process. Right? We don't have to straight away start with the highest principles. Swami talks about great things, right? We can start with simple things. Many times we have this confusion, especially we walk into a Sai center, we walk into the ashram. A lot of people ask this question. We lead our life in a certain way in the Sai center. We dress in a certain way in a Sai center. We carry ourselves in a different way, which is very different from the way we live outside. Isn't it hypocritical? Yes, it is, no doubt. But it is better. At least you have a controlled environment where you can follow this. At least you have a controlled environment where you can step in and start learning to try it out, isn't it? Because these are all slow things. As I said, these are all small messages that you give to the mind, that this is important to me. Swami is important to me. Swami's words are important to me. Swami's choices are important to me. Swami's likes and dislikes are important to me. And when we do that, He will come and hold your hand. I told about those devotees for whom Swami said seva is not enough. There was another devotee who was around when we were all students. He came from a very illustrious background. He was a president of one of the largest banks in India. He had a very good name. He had a very good reputation of being a great leader. Finally, after he retired, he came and settled in Parthi. And he would go up to Sami and say, Sami, give me an opportunity to serve you. So Sami said, I'll tell you. So every now and then he would get up and he would say, Sami, please give me an opportunity to serve you. One day Sami comes up to him and Sami says, such a large ashram. So many things are happening around. Why? Do you not find any opportunity to serve yourself? Then Swami said, you're a great banker. You've been a president of a bank. So you want a seva opportunity that is right to your status, isn't it? If you really want to serve, why? You can't go into the canteen and serve water. And imagine, he was a true devotee. He was a true aspirant. He knew that Swami had actually hit the nail on the head. Because he knew that that's what was running in his mind. Because he thought that he comes with his excellence in profession and Swami is going to give him a post, an opportunity which is rightful, which is the right thing for him to do. And when we were all students, he was a grand old man, this great person. We have seen him serve water in the canteen. He would come in the rows and serve water. For each person, the path will be customized. But for that, first we should want Swami to play that role. We should ask for obedience. We must obey. Start with these small changes in our lives, and then slowly the mind will start cooperating with us. And when he starts testing, that's the next phase that all of us devotees have gone through, isn't it? Swami would shower so much love, Swami would show so much kindness. But suddenly will come a time when we are going through the toughest phase in our life and Swami seems to be nowhere around. And we wonder, where have you vanished? Swami, you said you will hold my hand, you said you will stand by my side, but I'm going through this toughest phase and I don't see you around. Where are you? As one of my teachers said, he could be the best teacher, he could be the kindest teacher, but when you're writing an exam, he will not come and tell you the answer. When he plays the role of an invigilator, he will not come and tell you the answer. He will just stand there and let you take the test. And one of my professors, very beautifully, he said, what is the role then Swami plays? Imagine you're sitting there and writing an exam. Your teacher, he becomes the invigilator, and he comes and stands by your side. He can't tell you the answer because that becomes malpractice. He can't reveal you anything, he cannot help you with the paper, but he just stands there and he sees you writing your exam. And there's some problem that you're solving, and you've got the right answer. And this teacher said, imagine the invigilator just pats you on your back and says, good boy. Imagine the confidence that will come with that one pat. He says that is the role Swami plays in our life. He will he'll let you take the test. And when you get it right, just that one word of Manchiri Bangaru, good, you've done it well, you've done it well. That will give so much confidence, isn't it? I always like to relate this of one of my classmates who used to find it very difficult to follow all the disciplines in the hostel. He used to struggle with all the disciplines. Then one fine day he decided, here I am, Swami has given me this grand opportunity to be Swami's student. I must follow all these disciplines and please Swami. So he started from 5 o'clock in the morning, meditation, suprabhatam, jogging and everything. It's actually quite difficult. Right? I'm sure some of you know in the experience of the past 2-3 days. Imagine living that throughout the year. It's tough. So he struggled with that, but he said, no, for Swami, for pleasing Swami, for pleasing Swami. At the end of 2 weeks, he was completely spent. He was absolutely tired. He said, Swami, this is really tough. And then the mind starts playing tricks with you. I'm doing all this for Swami. Is it really reaching Swami? Is it really reaching Swami? There are hundreds of students here and I'm doing this for Swami. Is it really reaching Swami? But then doesn't want to let go. What if it is reaching Swami? So he writes a letter to Swami, putting all of this in his mind, into a letter. And that day, Swami comes, Swami is sitting on the portico, and Swami starts taking letters from students. And this scene would happen sometimes when suddenly Swami would, instead of saying like this, Swami would say like this. And a group of students will get up and go. So if there's 1 or 2, it's difficult, but if there's 20, it's a crowd. Then the whole, 20 more would join in. And eventually the entire block would go one after the other and give a letter to Swami. It's a scene which we've seen a couple of times. So this boy said, okay, let me give a letter to Swami. And he was one of the last few. There are about 100 and 150 boys who are giving letters to Swami. And Swami is just taking letters, saying a word or two. Finally, this boy's turn comes. He goes and gives this letter to Swami. He doesn't say anything. Swami doesn't read the letter. Swami just takes the paper and Swami says, good, continue. That's all, just 2 words. Good, continue. And that was enough. For the rest of the stay in the hostel, he was a disciplined boy. Right? Because when we go through a difficult time, when we go through tribulations and tests, the rule is that he cannot come and help us. A good teacher would not do that, isn't it? Because the learning is an important process that each one of us have to go through. But he will stand by your side and he will tell you that I'm there for you. The 1960s, when Swami was going to the Badri trip, Swami went to the Himalayas. Swami had gone to the city of Chennai and Swami was going to take a flight from there to Delhi. So Swami was driving towards the airport, and those days Swami did not have a convoy, Swami did not have the traffic police regulating the traffic for him. So he was in a car, and as all of us, it happens to all of us, he was stuck in traffic. So Swami was sitting in the car, sitting in the traffic, waiting for the lights. When in the traffic, they found that there was one man who was very poorly dressed in rags, and he was wiping the cars which were parked in the traffic. That's a scene you will see in the cities in India, where when there's a traffic, there would be somebody, a poor person would come and start wiping the car, and he will just ask you for some change. So clearly, a man who is very, very poor He was dressed in rags, hair disheveled, and he was cleaning cars in the traffic jam. And Swami looked at this man, and he looked at the devotee who was sitting in the car with him, and Swami said, "Hey, go and call that man." And he said, "Swami, who?" "That man who's wiping the car." And this devotee was, of course, a very, very rich devotee who was driving Swami around. He said, "Swami, you want me to go and call that man? He looks like a beggar." Swami said, "Yes, go and call him." And this devotee goes and calls this man. The moment this rich devotee goes towards this man, that man starts running away. So then next to Swami is sitting Mr. Raja Reddy. So Swami looks at Raja Reddy Garu and says, "You go and call him." So finally Raja Reddy Garu goes behind that man and convinces him and brings him. And the moment that man comes to Swami's car, sees Swami on the road, he falls flat at Swami's feet and he says, "Swami," and he starts crying and bursts into sobs. And Swami lifts him up and Swami pats him. Swami says, I know what you're going through." And Swami said, "I called you to tell you, even now I am with you. Don't worry, I am with you." And Swami gave him some money and Swami sent him away. And Swami got into the car and started driving towards the airport. And then the devotee asked Swami, "Swami, what is this? What is this that happened?" Then Swami said, that man was a very, very rich man. He was a devotee of Swami, very rich. But he had to go through this karma or whatever it is, because of which he had to become poor. He lost everything in his life. Now he's come to the roads. I wanted to tell him that even in this test, Swami is with him. And Swami said, the moment you went, he thought it's one of the people who has lent him money and he started running away. And that's why I sent Raja Reddy, because he knows Raja Reddy. So even when we are going through the toughest phase in our life, he might not be around, but be sure that he is there beside us, watching over us. Because as Swami said, if I am the one who's your teacher, your failure is my failure, isn't it? When I am your teacher, if you fail, that shows poorly on me. So I am always with you, even when you're going through that test. This is one aspect of surrender where we look at Swami and say, "Swami, I want you to play all these roles for me in my life." There is this other very beautiful concept that, please indulge me for a few minutes. It's a concept in Vedanta which is very, very important whenever you talk about surrender. There is this concept called the Pramanas. We refer to them, the word used is Pramanas. Simply translated, it means tools of knowledge or means of knowledge. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say I come up to any one of you and say, "You know what? Today a person fell down in the mandir." Okay? That's a piece of information I'm giving you. Today a person fell down in the mandir. And you look at me and ask, "How do you know?" And let's say I tell you, I saw it. I saw the person falling in front of me. So Vedanta says, this is one form of knowledge where you are a direct witness. You've seen it yourself. You've observed it yourself. You've been there. And the term which is used is pratyaksha pramana. You are directly seeing it. The second means of knowledge is, again, the same example. I come and tell you, I saw this person, a person fell down in mandir, and you ask me, "How do you know? Did you see that person fall?" So I tell you, no, I didn't see the person fall, but I was walking by that way. I heard a thud. I turned back and I saw this person lying down. So I inferred that person must have fallen. I have not seen it directly, but there are certain things that I have observed, and based on that, I have come to the conclusion. I've inferred that person must have fallen. This is called Anumana Pramana. There are 2-3 other Pramanas. We'll not go into that and confuse ourselves. The third Pramana, which is very important for us today, same example. I come and tell you, apparently today a person fell down in the mandir. And you ask me, "How do you know?" And I tell you, I heard it from so and so. I heard it from a person I trust. I was not there myself, but somebody whom I know was there, and he or she saw it, and they came and told me, so somebody fell in the mandir. This is referred to as Shabda Pramana. I have not seen it myself. I do not have any inputs to come to an inference, but I have heard it from a person whom I trust. When we come to Swami, many of the instructions that Swami gives us, many of the teachings that Swami gives us, there is no direct way for us to test it out. If Swami comes and tells you, if you do this, this is good karma, if you do this, you will get a reward in your next birth, there's no way for me to test it out. There is no way I can have a direct knowledge of that. But then I trust Swami's word, isn't it? So if the person who's telling me what he's telling is trustworthy, I take his name for it. I take his word for it. If you look at it, if you now review all the knowledge that you have in science, in civics, in world affairs, everything, it will all fall into these three major categories of means of knowledge. Either you would have seen it yourself, or you would have come to the conclusion based on few inputs that you have, or you would have heard it from somebody whom you trust. So when we first come to Swami, the first step is make Swami's words one of these Shabda Pramanas. I do not have a direct proof. It does not really come into my reasoning too, but I trust Swami. I take his word for it. So if Swami says, I want you to follow these simple, let's say, I want you to be a vegetarian, I don't want you to smoke, I don't want you to drink, I may not have a direct means of proving why it is right or wrong or how it can affect me spiritually, but Swami says so, so I accept it. It becomes a Shabda Pramana. But the problem with Swami becoming a Shabda Pramana is, let's say, today Einstein came and gave me a theory. He says, this is how an atom looks. So that becomes a Shabda Pramana to me. I take his word for it. Tomorrow another scientist comes who seems to be more intelligent than Einstein, and he tells me, no, the structure of the atom is like this. No, I have two Shabda Pramanas which are contradictory, and I'll be confused, or I'll have to choose one over the other. If I relegate Swami only to Shabda Pramana, I will constantly keep reviewing what he says. I will constantly try to reason out, did Swami say because of this? Did Swami say because of that? That's what I'm doing right now. Right? There is a word which actually we don't have to reason about at all, but here I am trying to reason it out. Because if Swami's word is only kept in the realm of Shabda Pramana or an advice from a person whom I trust, then I will start reviewing it. Tomorrow a scientist comes and tells me something, oh, but Swami told like this, but science says this. Tomorrow some other guru comes and says something, oh, Swami said like this, but this guru is more logical. When Swami inaugurated the super specialty hospital and Swami conducted the first cardiac conference, I hope I'm getting that right, first cardiac conference in the year 91 or 92. Swami had the sessions in the university auditorium. Swami would keep them all there. And Swami gave an inaugural discourse when he started off, and they had the best cardiac surgeons from around the world attending that conference. They got the best of the best in the country and around the world. And there were these host of scientists, great luminaries in the field sitting in front of Swami. And Swami is giving a discourse. And Swami starts speaking about cholesterol, heart. And Swami starts making a few statements which are a little disagreeable to the scientific community. So till that point, they were listening to Swami with respect. But the moment Swami started telling these things which do not fit into their reasoning, they said, okay, seems to be a good man, but he's got it all wrong. He's a good-minded individual, but has no idea of, cardiology. So the discourse was over, the inaugural session was over, and there was a there was a break which was there, a tea session that Swami had organized. And Swami had called all the MBA students to serve during that break. So counters were set up, the MBA students were there behind the counters. And then these doctors had formed small groups, like, wherever you go to an academic conference, the doctors started forming groups and they started discussing their academic prowess and all of that. And here was Swami, he was the host. He would go from one group to the other, trying to fit into that group. And here were all these cardiologists who had heard Swami make some ridiculous statements according to them. They would look at Swami and give him a nod and continue their discussion. And it was a very odd scene. Here are these people, Swami standing there in front of them, hoping to get into that conversation. And the boys were there standing and serving. They felt very, very bad seeing this scene. They felt very hurt. Do they have any idea? How are they treating Swami like this? And Swami was going from group to group, and Swami sensed what was going through the minds of these students. It was shown on their faces. They were all angry. The faces had become small. And Swami very gently walks up to them, and Swami sweetly says, "It's okay, boys, it's okay. They don't know Swami is God." He says, "It's okay, forgive them. They don't know Swami is God." What an important statement it is. What happens when you know, when you remember, when you never forget that Swami is God? I use the word Pramana, means of knowledge. Swami often speaks about this, one of the most beautiful names which were given to God in Vedanta. It's called Aprameya. Aprameya means one who is beyond all the Pramanas. One who is beyond all reason, one who is beyond all direct perception. So Swami says God is actually Aprameya, which means you have to take Swami's word and raise it above our reason, above our understanding, and above all the words anybody else can come and tell us, however logical it might seem. Anybody can come and tell us, this is what spirituality is. We should be able to go back to Swami's words and say, no, what Swami says is ultimate. I may be able to understand it, I may not be able to understand it. Most of the time we will not be able to understand it, but Swami has said it, so it is. Which means you are lifting Swami, and that is true surrender. From obedience, if we have to raise ourselves to surrender, it is when we raise Swami's words from the level of Shabda Pramana to the level where it truly belongs, which is the state of Aprameya. He is beyond reason, he is beyond perception in all of that. I'll probably wind up. Do I have 5 minutes? This was narrated by one of our students who happens to be also the grandson of the great devotee of Swami Rajmata. So he was narrating this story to us once. He comes from a royal family, Rajmata of course. So there was a period in their life when there was a settlement which was going on between the families, a property settlement, right? They were a royal kingdom, they had a lot of lands, a lot of wealth. So they were going through a process where they were dividing this property amongst sisters and brothers. And it so happened that they were giving a raw deal to this particular family. This student of ours and his mother were getting a bad deal in that process. And in some of these traditional families, youngsters never question the elders. So the mother knew that this was not a right thing that was happening, but she did not have the courage to speak up against the elders. And for some reason, Swami was going through this entire process. Every time they would come to Parthi, Swami would call them for an interview, and Swami would tell them, so what are they saying? How much are they going to give you? What is the property that is coming to you? As though it's important. Swami doesn't really care, isn't it? But Swami was showing such keen interest in that, and then Swami told her, no, this is not right. They're trying to cheat you. So you should stand up against it. So this boy's mother said, no, Swami, it's not possible. I really can't do that. It is not done in our family. Swami said, no, I am telling you. If anybody asks you, tell Swami has said. But she did not have the courage. So this was going on for some time, and she said, Swami, I really cannot do this. So Swami was giving her a long rope, and Swami was trying to convince her. So one time it happened that the mother was going to come to Parthi for a darshan, and the student and the son was a student in the school. So by then he knew that when the mother comes, he is going to get an interview. So he thought, now this is an opportunity. I'm going to be with Swami in the interview room. Can I do something to please Swami and get the remark from Swami saying, good boy? If your entire life is in front of you, it's difficult. But when you have only 7 days to work with, it's easy, right? Because in the next 7 days, his mother was going to come. So he said, in 7 days, can I do something which will please Swami, that when I go into that interview room, Swami will look at me and say, good boy. So for the next 7 days, he said, I was the best Sai student the university has ever seen. I was my best behavior. I followed every rule, and the said rules and unsaid rules and everything. Whatever would please Swami, I followed everything to the last word. And I walked into that interview room thinking that, I've done it. And Swami is going to say, good boy. So he took his place at Swami's feet. His mother was there. And very quickly, the discussion resumed about the property dispute. So this boy was pressing Swami's feet, and the mother was going, this discussion was happening, and this boy was thinking in his mind, Swami, what are you going on talking about this property and land and money and all that? Why don't you look at me and say you're a good boy? See, I've been such a good boy. Why don't you just look at me and say, see, he's a good boy. And the thought just crosses his mind, and Swami looks at him and stares. He says, oh, I caught. Swami says, hey, get up. And this boy gets up. Swami says, kneel down. So he kneels down, and he says, he's too close to Swami for comfort. And Swami is bending over, and literally Swami's hair is touching his forehead. Swami is staring at him. And Swami says, bad boy. And he says, Swami, this is not the time you give me this remark for all the bad I was before. This is the 1 week I've been a good boy. Swami said, but Swami, I've been a good boy. And Swami looks at him and says, especially past 1 week, very bad boy. This boy is saying, what is happening? Swami, why are you saying this? But Swami is not making a joke. There is no smile on his face. There is no twinkle in his eye. It doesn't seem to be a mischievous comment. Swami keeps staring at him, and Swami says a couplet in Hindi. Looks at this boy and says a beautiful couplet in Hindi. Swami says, I'll say it and then I'll translate it. Swami says, Raja roothe nagri chodo, sai rootha kahan jaso. He says, Raja roothe nagri chodo. If you're in a kingdom and if you displease the king, you can leave the kingdom. You can leave the city. Raja roothe, if the king is upset with you, you can leave the kingdom. Sai rootha kahan jaso. If Swami is upset with you, where will you go and hide? Where can you go? If the king is upset, you can leave the city, but if Swami is upset, where can you go? This boy had no clue why Swami was telling this to him. But the mother got the message. Because she was not able to face, it was really a Raja, because it was a royal family. She was not able to face the elders in the family. And here was Swami saying, you can displease anybody, you can move away from them. If you displease me, where will you go and hide? Is there a place you can find where I am not there? Can you go and hide there? And she said, what a mistake I am doing. Out of the fear of displeasing these people around me, I've made up my mind to displease Swami. What a stupid thing this is. What a foolish thing this is to do. And instantly the interview gets over. She walks out of the interview room, calls up the elders in a family, and she says, I don't agree. So when we give this role to him, when he gives us the command, we have to take it beyond any other argument. There is no argument. What Swami says is the final word. but that is the relationship we have to strike with him. Swami doesn't say that. Right? Swami doesn't force surrender on us, but we must, out of our wisdom, say that this is the right thing to do. And when he does that, I'll probably end with a very light incident, very beautiful incident. You all must have heard about Sri Ramabrahmam. Sri Ramabrahmam Garu was a great devotee of Swami. He was the caretaker of Vrindavan, a phenomenal devotee, a wonderful example for somebody who follows Swami's word, who follows Swami's command. A beautiful example for that. Whatever Swami would say, he would just follow it. But one day Swami gave him also a command which was not easy to follow. To give you a description, those of you who have not probably seen a picture of him, he was 6 feet tall. He had a broad shoulder and he had a huge head, a huge bald head. He used to be an imposing figure in front of Swami. And one day Swami calls him inside Swami's room, picks up one of Swami's robes, throws it to him, and Swami says, "Hey, Ramabrahmam, Vesko, wear it." Probably even if Swami says, think only 20 thoughts a day, it's easy. But a 6-foot man trying to wear Swami's robe, Swami is so tender, Swami is so sleek, so beautiful, isn't it? And he's looking at it, he says, "Swami, even my hand will not go inside this robe. How am I going to wear it?" Swami says, "Hey, I am telling you, will you not follow my command?" Swami said, "Wear it." He said, "Swami, I'm going to tear the robe." Swami said, "No problem, wear it." So he wonders, will my head fit into the neck of this robe? And he starts wearing it. He tries to wear it. And years later, when he would narrate this incident, he would narrate it with tears in his eyes, because he said, even as he was wearing that robe, that robe expanded to fit him, and he could fit into that robe. And he said, that day I walked out with the reassurance that when Swami gives you a command, Swami will also give you the strength to accomplish that command. What a playful incident, isn't it? Through such a playful, sweet incident, Swami has shown it. When he gives you a command, he will give you the strength. But you must want to obey him. Right? We must want to obey him. And that wanting to obey him will come only with love, isn't it? Nothing else. How much ever I am desirous of my spiritual progress, that obedience will not come from that. It will only come from deep love and craving for Swami. And Swami would say that love and craving is the fire which can burn every vice in this heart. That love is the fire that will make you progress. It's like that fire in this engine which will make you move ahead every day, every step of your life. And Swami said, "Chaipatti kapadute vratamunako." I'll hold your hand and take you, but you should give me your hand. You should stretch out and say, "Swami, I want to hold your hand." I'll probably end with a beautiful, beautiful shloka, poem that Swami is saying. Those of you who heard me before will know that I always like to recite this poem. It's a Telugu poem. I will tell it in Telugu and I'll also translate it. Swami says, "Chikkina sayini vakkaleyaka chakka chesukondi. Chikkina sayini vakkaleyaka chakka chesukondi." The Swami that you have caught, without losing him, hold him tight. Vakkaleyaka, don't lose this opportunity. Chikkina sayi, you don't know how this opportunity has come. We don't know how it has come to us. But having got it, hold tight to it. Having held his hand, hold it tight. Don't let go. Chikkina sayini vakkaleyaka chakka chesukondi. Don't give up. Then Swami says, "Poyina dorukadu ee parteesu ni pada sevayandi." If you lose it now, there is no guarantee it is coming back again. Swami says, if you lose this opportunity of pada seva now, there is no guarantee it is coming back. And Swami would beautifully explain what is the true meaning of pada seva. It is not sitting at the feet and pressing or massaging the feet. It is following in the footstep of the Master. Poyina dorukadu ee parteesu ni pada sevayandi. If you lose this opportunity, it might not come back again. Then Swami says, Eka manasuto nammi sayini yenchi koluva bondi. Eka manasuto, with one pointedness, nammi sayini, with faith. That is what we mean by saying that you should take his word beyond the Shabda Pramana, isn't it? That you don't doubt his word at any instance in life. That complete faith and one-pointed faith. Eka manasuto nammi sayini inchi koluva bondi. Don't worship me in bhajans, don't worship me by offering flowers. I'm not saying don't do that. But Swami says, if you really want to worship me with this one-pointed faith. Eka manasuto nammi sayini inchi koluva bondi. And Swami beautifully says, Itarula matala nimpuga nammi kompa tiyakandi. Unnecessarily don't listen to everybody's words and confuse yourself. Because nobody's words is actually as pure, as selfless, as redeeming as his words. Swami says, imagine you're going on a trek to the Manasarovar. Manasarovar is supposed to be the purest form of water. I'm sure we all will do that. Walking up to Manasarovar, it's a huge trek, it's a very difficult trek. You go to the purest source of water, and there we will take a bottle like this and drink that water. You've gone to the purest form of water, you've gone to the source of water. You've gone to Gangotri, where the water is crystal clear. Do you want to go there and drink some packaged drinking water? Why do you want to listen to others' words when you have Swami's words? What a blessing it is. I cannot get myself over this idea that today I can pull out my phone, click a button, and I can hear Swami's voice. When was the last time mankind was so fortunate that with a click of a button you could hear the voice of God anytime, anywhere? That is the blessing Swami has given us. We can hear his own voice, the voice with that passion, with that pain that you're not listening to him. With that, Swami will be pleading, do this, follow this. Swami has given us that opportunity. Swami says, don't fill your head with others' advice and others. Don't even fill it with his words, whatever I've been saying so far. Take Swami's word and hold it as precious. In the final line, the most beautiful, Swami says, Bhaktini ichi, Shaktilo munchi, Mukti jerchunandi. I will give you bhakti. I will give you the Shakti which is required. I'll give you the strength which is required. And I will take you right till the goal. Swami says, Bhaktini ichi shaktilo munchi. I will immerse you in all the strength that is required for this journey. And I will take you right till the last step. Can there be a more profound assurance than this? Can Swami give a promise more than this? When we were students, when we used to sing songs to Swami or write letters to Swami, and Swami, this life is for you, we are living for you, we are ready to live for you, die for you. When Swami is a little upset, Swami will speak a little more truthfully. Swami will say, don't do all this drama. Natakam, Swami will hold his hair and say, Inta mandi chusanra, I have seen these many people. Swami would say, don't tell things which you don't mean. You don't mean these things. Don't tell me things that you don't mean. And Swami would add, I am not like that. Whatever I say, I mean it. I am Sathya Sai Baba. What I say is Sathya. So many times Swami would stand there in that portico, and any number of times Swami has said this, what I say, I mean it. When I say this is my promise, it is my promise for eternity. Swami says, I will take you right till the end. The only thing that what we have to do is, we should want Swami to play that role in our life. We must want to obey Swami. It is not easy to obey Swami, right? Because we are not in control of our mind. But Swami says, I will give you all the strength. I will immerse you in that strength. Shaktilo munchi mukti jerchunandi. This Swami will take you to mukti. And that's what is the topic for the day, isn't it? Follow my command, not my command. Follow his command and reach the goal. once again, I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity, because as Swami would say, you cannot even have a stray thought of Swami without Swami willing it. And every time Swami blesses us with an opportunity to talk like this, to audience like this, I can't tell you how much of a blessing it is. Swami is giving us an opportunity to think of him so much. I really cannot thank the Swami and each one of you for that opportunity. I most humbly and gratefully offer this effort at Swami's lotus feet. I thank you all for your very, very patient listening, and I wish you all the very best in your spiritual endeavor.